in the room.
All right, we're unmuted.
You're supposed to be here, Mark.
Like, no, I'm not crossing the chapel eye for the.
Right. They speak.
Yes.
Will someone on the Zoom just say something so we can make sure the audio's functioning?
Hello.
Yay, thank you, Kate.
Welcome.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and get started. We are a little after 1, and I want to make sure to be respectful of your time. So welcome everybody online and everybody in the room to our semi-annual Support Fund Planning Committee meeting. Mike, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, well, thank you all for coming, and those of you on the Zoom. Let's get started. So, let's go around and do an introduction very quickly.
Tetra Cheetah with LED. Kanisha Akin Palumi, Xavier representing Life. Christine Norton, Board of Regents Support Fund Administration.
Carrie Robinson with Board of Regents.
Mike Stubblefield State University, A&M College.
Janine O'Rourke, UL System.
I can start and I need no introduction.
Jessica Patton, Board of Regents.
Chris Mediate, Board of Regents.
I'm Brian Jones with the Support Fund.
All right, folks on the Zoom.
Mark Zappi, representing the UL system from UL.
I'm Annie Weaver, representing Loyola from Advancement.
I'm Kate Spikes. I represent LSU Foundation and the foundations in general.
Anyone else?
Demetrius Porsche, LSU Health Science Center, New Orleans.
We can't see them, so. All right, well, thank you all very much for coming. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the August 8th meeting. August 18th meeting.
We don't have a quorum, so we'll have to table that for a future meeting.
Okay. All right, so, item 3 is, the, 26-27, budget. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. I want to recognize the elephant in the room first by saying there is a vote scheduled for April 18th, 2026 to pass a constitutional amendment that will repeal the Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund and all sub-funds, which includes the Board of Regents Support Fund. If that vote passes, that means that all holdings in the support fund will be taken immediately. And we will not be able to run programs anymore. We typically, I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute. We typically, all of the support fund budget comes from the proceeds from the trust fund and related oil and gas revenues. Those will cease to flow to us, and those will all be used to clear a portion of the unaccrued liability in the retirement systems. So that is coming up nevertheless, because the Constitution remains in place until that vote occurs. We are still constitutionally required to submit an annual plan and budget for fiscal year 27. It may be a dead letter by the time we get to the session, but it is still required. So our approach to the plan and budget we're going to present today is to restore all of the existing grant programs. Many of you may know that as a result of the legislature passing that bill, which became Act 222 of the 2025 session, the Board of Regents took the approach that the grant programs would be limited to only RCS in fiscal year 27. All other grant programs would be terminated for fiscal year 26, And RCS projects would be limited to 1 year, but at a much higher, 1-year budget level than previously permissible. So the approach that we've taken for fiscal year 27, should we be fortunate enough to survive the vote, is to restore all of the programs that existed prior to fiscal year 26, and to hold the line in terms of making any major changes or amendments to the support fund. Given the uncertainty, it simply doesn't make sense to make any changes at this time. So with that, I will just remind you of the context in which we operate. The support fund is established in the Constitution, Article 7, Section 10.1. It runs off the proceeds of the trust fund in the Treasury that's dedicated to education. The division of earnings, 25% of earnings in the trust fund are plowed back into fund growth, which means the trust fund currently has value of approximately 1.6 billion. The remaining 75% of annual earnings are split evenly between Bessie and Board of Regents, Bessie for K-12 operation or for K-12 activities and Regents for higher education. Our goals in terms of the Constitution are to do 2 things: to improve the quality of higher education and to enhance economic development in the state. Those 2 goals are framed as equal, which is why all of our programs try to speak to both of those goals equally. We are charged by the Constitution to spend money only in 4 constitutionally dedicated programs, designated programs: endowed chairs for eminent scholars, enhancement of academic research in agricultural departments and units. I always flag at this point that the Constitution specifies academic research and agricultural activities as the only activities that these funds can be used for. We don't support general student services. We don't support campus-wide activity. Everything is contained within academic research and agricultural departments. We can fund targeted research and development, which we do through a suite of 3 programs that are broadly drawn, and we can support the recruitment of superior graduate students. We have 2 sources of expendable revenue that flow into the support fund on an annual basis. We have the investment earnings from the trust fund, and those are invested by Treasury, not by Regents, and maintained by the Treasury and dispersed to Regents and Bessie as required. The investment types, this is just a note, people always ask the question why we haven't done better when we get to the revenue slide, why we haven't done better over this long period of market growth. We have not done better because the investment types and the amount of risk that we can take on is very strictly limited by statute. We tried to get a constitutional amendment to change some of those statutory limitations, and that amendment failed 60-40, so not close. We also get royalties, which is income from the Gulf sector that was affected by the settlement that created the trust fund. On average, our revenue, our annual revenue is about 25.5 million. We haven't been anywhere close to that in the last several years. The current value of the LEQTS, the trust fund, is 1.67 billion. As of December 24, we figure that will be higher when we get the annual report from the treasurer in December of 25. In terms of our revenue and expenditure, what you can see is we have experienced since the Great Recession, a huge decline in the amount of revenue that flows into the support fund. We had a historic low this year. We haven't seen revenues this low since 1989, the second year in which we received revenues from the trust fund. We spent about $17 million last year based on revenue estimates. But what we actually saw in terms of the revenues is a pickup. We see revenues for the first time recovering and not artificially recovering. We started to see that in 24, that continued to increase in 25. When you see those peaks in 2012, 13, and again in 2021, those are sell-offs of capital gains, which are related to the statutory restrictions and to special requests from the Board of Regents and Bessie to reap more gains so that we could continue to spend at higher levels. Those are artificial. The bump ups you see in 24 and 25 are real. We actually just earned that money. What's the structure of the support fund? We do 10 programs. They are pretty evenly distributed between endowment matching programs, which are long-term investments in the health of our institutions, and shorter-term direct investments in campus activities. Those are our R&D programs, departmental enhancement, and our federal matching, which are matching dollars, yes, but they're federal matching dollars to programs that are ongoing and time limited. So we have both short-term and long-term investments across the support fund. And these investments are designed to have an impact on institutions of all types. So they're designed to cover the whole spectrum of institution types, higher education institution types in Louisiana. What types of awards do we give? We give grants. These are direct support for educational and scholarly work. That's about 60% of all the funds we've expended since 1987. We provide endowment matching for scholarships and faculty endowments. That's about 32%. The grant percentage of what we provide has been declining over the last several years. It used to be about 70-25 grants to endowments, and that the grant amount has declined, the endowment amount has ramped up as the board has become more interested in providing match for what are extremely oversubscribed programs in the endowments. We have large numbers of endowments out there that donors have given that we simply do not have the funds to match. When we collected all of the outstanding endowments to provide the legislature with a number, should the support fund be repealed, the amount that we needed last fall when we looked at it was about $59 million. Now it's 75 to clear all of the endowments that institutions have gotten from the donors, and we don't have the funds to match in the support fund. Federal matching makes up the final 10%. We provide matching funds for federal awards that are statewide in nature. So Louisiana EPSCoR, including the new ECOR, is matched through the Board of Regents support fund, as well as NASA, and we've done Department of Defense, Department of Energy, all kinds of things across the federal spectrum through the support fund. Yes, ma'am.
Really quick, just because university is not really my core knowledge base. On the endowments, you said that with the growing amount of non-match for the endowments, what happens long-term if those endowments are not matched?
If the endowments are not matched, the way that the matching works is we do, it depends on the program, 60-40, 80-20, 50-50, in a variety of programs. We have put the institutions and the systems on notice that the legislature has passed multiple now bills to sweep the support fund, the trust fund. And at that point, we have collected a complete list of everything that is awaiting match. We'll turn it over to the legislature because there won't be funds allocated to the Board of Regents to match.
So those endowed chairs or whatever that is, they just don't get the balance that they had thought they were getting, or they have to make up the money somewhere else? Like, tell me what
No,
happens.
it really depends on the donor. If
Okay.
they have made a positive promise to the donor
Yeah.
that they will receive match, the donor can pull back the donation.
Okay,
Or the donor can let it ride and see if the legislature has an appetite for providing the funds to
okay.
make
That's
the
what I was-
matches whole.
Yes, okay, thank you.
And I'll talk a little bit more after we go through the budget about plans that we're thinking about that might help us through on the grant side to make grantees whole who have multi-year awards and federal matching that we won't be able to meet if the funds
Also-
are swept.
So if it does occur, then, April of next year, you're saying that any outstanding obligations will be canceled?
That's what we have announced, because the way that the first time they ran in the third extraordinary in 2024, the first time they ran the bill, it was it was not inclusive of what we call reserves, but are actually just unexpended dollars that have been earned over time. In the bill that was run in, the 2025 regular, they included all funds in the accounts. So the first time we faced this situation, we planned to use reserves to offset those obligations that we couldn't meet.
Okay.
But the way that it's written now, we could not do that
Understood.
after the sweep. But when we get to the end, I will explain what we're thinking about ways to to keep institutions whole. All right, any other questions before we move forward? Okay. Expenditures by program, this just gives you a sense of how the funds have been allocated across the four constitutional categories. Federal matching is broken out, obviously, because it's very different from the other categories. We have finally reached $1 billion. It's fantastic. We have spent over $1 billion now in support of our institutions through the history of the support fund. Some benefits of support fund investments. I think everybody at the table kind of has a sense of this. We have supported everything from some of the first computer labs at our institutions, because the support fund started in 1987. As institutions started to roll out computer labs, they came to us. We have supported the growth of statewide initiatives like Lewis, the Statewide Library Network, Lonnie, the Louisiana Optical Network Initiative, the Post-Katrina Support Fund Initiative, which provided support for institutions directly affected by Hurricanes Katrina and Rita in 2005 to help them recover their infrastructure and to continue research and educational programming while they recovered. We have provided enormous supplementary support for faculty recruitment through the faculty endowment programs, and for faculty retention, trying to keep our best and brightest here. We have provided significant dollars for student support, including graduate fellowships for years and years. You saw almost $200 million in graduate fellowships that were paid out during that time. We now have endowed scholarships that are generating private sector match to provide scholarship support in high priority areas. We also provide research experiences for undergraduates. We provide money for graduate and undergraduate students to work in labs to get experience that way. We support facilities for students, language labs, computer labs, just basic science labs for students. We are also, all the upgrades to CAMD, to our world-class CAMD facility in Baton Rouge. Most of those upgrades to the beamline have come through the Board of Regents Support Fund. So facilities enhancements, shared labs, growth of knowledge, leveraging state investments through the support fund to generate federal dollars. We know that our research programs generate between $10 and $12 for every dollar that we spend in federal funding and other external funding that's flowing into the state. So it has been highly beneficial and has leveraged significant monies to support Louisiana education and research over its 40 years of existence.
If I may add, many of our faculty members statewide owe their tenure and promotion to this program. And many of them have been able to secure very prestigious grant from NSF called Career. Again, their first grant was from RSI before they were able to do this. And another fact is that when we recruit faculty members, we tell them that there is this RSI in Louisiana. If you go elsewhere, you won't have that.
Yeah.
So it's been a great recruitment and also retention tool.
And I think it's important to note that this program is unique. Brian Jones can tell you when we go out to recruit external evaluators to look at our proposals, and all of the proposals we receive are vetted by external teams, not internal teams, using a scoring rubric that is published. When we go out to those reviewers, a lot of them say, I wish my state had something like this. This is a unique program in the country. Very, very few states. In fact, I don't know of any parallel in any other state. Now, if you were paying attention as the spring progressed, you'll know that Massachusetts is talking about setting up something exactly like this to help to backfill the investments that the federal government is indicating it may no longer make. But they don't have one. They're just thinking about doing one.
Yeah, the current government landscape makes this even more concerning.
Yeah, it was very difficult. The other reason, the reason that Mike mentioned this fund is important is the reason that we are taking so seriously the need to find a way to keep
Yes.
the multi-year grants going and not have to terminate them when the funds are swept. We will get to that.
Brian Roberts is on Zoom. He said his first grant was RCS.
All right, there you have it.
And I'll attest to the people leaving. I remember someone left and then the for award, I said, I thought you left and went to Michigan and said, I came back. They just don't have anything to parallel what this is for early career faculty. So that was us bringing someone back to Michigan.
And in the case of Brian Roberts, the executive director and chief scientist of LungCon, completely committed to the state of Louisiana and our marine science landscape, it's got to start through the support fund. So with that, we'll get to the budget recommendations for fiscal year 27. I just want to give you an overview of what our budget development process looks like. We're at the beginning stages. The staff formulates an initial recommendation. That's what we're bringing to you today. And we bring it to the planning committee and to our advisory committee when that committee can convene to look at that recommendation and forward it to the Board of Regents. If you agree with it, that is part of our advisory process. Once it goes to the Board of Regents, they take formal action on that budget, and that starts the formal process. It goes across the street to the legislature and the governor at least 60 days prior to regular session, which is why we can't just wait for that April vote. Then it's part of House Bill 1, which is the appropriations bill. That House Bill 1 will stipulate the final budget and the spending authority that we have to operate the program, and the fiscal year begins on July 1. So everything that we're doing now is preparing for fiscal year 27. The current budget is set, and we are moving forward with the competitions. This is what our revenue picture looks like, and it is unfortunate that we are facing a possible repeal at this moment because it looks like the picture is finally starting to brighten a little bit for the support fund. Both the Revenue Estimating Conference and Treasury are looking at increases starting in 26 that look like it might stabilize the fund at a little bit higher level than we have been at for the last several years. So that would be great news if we are able to hold on to the fund. Support fund budget considerations. We are recommending a $22 million base budget for the support fund for fiscal year 27. And here's the way that we derive that number. The official state estimate from the Revenue Estimating Conference, we generally follow the official state estimate. That official estimate is $22.3 million. That estimate was provided in May. The Treasury estimate provided in August. Treasury is always more conservative. That estimate is 21.75. So you actually see they're pretty close. Sometimes they're very far apart. They're actually pretty close this year. The midpoint is 22 million. That is what we're recommending because last year, when our official estimate was 17, we earned 22.1 million. So we have some confidence that we will reach that midpoint, that is actually a fairly conservative estimate and a reasonable one. Positive news, 5-year projections are predicting recovery, revenues are up. So that's great. Our ongoing challenges are less great. Interest rates always pose an issue because we are in safe investments and low interest rates don't benefit us much. Inflation is hampering everything in the economy, as we all know. The declines in royalties, we get almost no royalties anymore from the sector that is affected. We went from 20-something million in royalties on an annual basis, now we get less than 3. And that's not going to recover. The sector's almost dry. So that's not going to recover. And the constitutional amendment is obviously a big challenge going forward. So with that, we do recommend 22 million with contingencies. It's important to recognize that the support fund, while we bring this budget to you a year in advance, we run competitions throughout that next year, which means we don't ask the Board of Regents to allocate the money until April of, in this case, fiscal year 27. So we will have the entire year of looking at what revenues are doing and getting new revenue estimates to make a determination as to whether we need to reduce the budget from that 22 million, which means there's minimal risk in going with the $22 million estimate because we can make reductions at the point of making recommendations to the board rather than having to spend out money that we don't know that we're going to get. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague Christine to walk through the budget.
Okay, so what you see here is our projection for 26-27. The way we come up with this budget, if you notice, the first thing we do is take our prior commitments. If you look at the prior commitments for 26-27, they are much less than the prior commitments for the previous year, and that is due to some of our programs being suspended because of the amendment, which did not pass locally. But so our prior commitments are much less, and we have a greater available this year, which is why there's such a difference in how much we have available. So the first thing we do is we take any obligations already on the books, prior commitments. These are for RCS, enhancement, ITRS, and then federal awards, which are already on the books. That's where we get our total obligated prior commitments. The next thing we take is our administrative budget, which is an average of the three last years of expenditures. And that's how we determine our administrative budget. We've had staff cuts from 11.5 to approximately 3.2 staff now. So we have gone down significantly, and while the work hasn't decreased, the number of people who do it have, but our admin budget is based on actual expenditures for the 3 prior years. So as we have less to spend, we have less to pay, to put towards administration. If we do survive and the numbers go up, hopefully we'll get this admin budget up a little more. Let's see. So then we go to new awards. First, we look at federal awards. There are a number of federal awards that are pending that we will provide matches for. We also go for endowment matches, chairs, professorships, workforce scholarships, and grad scholarships. And then finally, our grants and contracts, what we have left. So this year, let's see, we will have approximately 17.7 available for all these new awards. We have contingencies, if we have higher than what's budgeted, what's projected is higher than budgeted, we will not do any additional revenues unless we allocate those by the board, but it will not change our spending authority. If it's lower than budgeted, we'll take partial reductions across first year amounts of competitive programs. If cuts are needed after competitive programs are reduced or eliminated, reductions would be across non-competitive professorships, but that has never happened. And then if additional cuts were needed, then reductions would be made to federal matching and prior obligations, which has also never happened before.
And I would add in terms of the contingencies that we have carry forward authority, so we don't lose any monies that we don't expend. That is what constitutes what we call reserve, that is actually just unexpended funds.
So do we need to do this since we have people?
Since we don't have a quorum, we won't do a formal adoption of the recommendation because we can't. But any questions about how the funds have been budgeted?
Any questions from folks here or on the Zoom?
Or you move it all, or form, any comments that either one of us, just to make sure that you don't have a standstill or,
No, we're not at a standstill because this is advisory.
okay, so we're good.
We're fine. We don't need to take formal action because this body is advisory, to the board. We can take this as the advice of the assembled members.
So look, I know what you're doing, I'm okay with it in terms of what do we expect, what we don't expect, so at least for me, the language is good, at least for some.
So my question is, so with the adjusted budget, we're still talking about, the allocation of $900,000. Even though,
That's for this current year.
yes,
Yes.
but still talking about doing that, even though there was constitutional amendment that would kill that moving forward.
Yes, because the language in the Constitution stands until the amendment's ratified by the voters, we have a constitutional obligation to provide a full planted budget based on the revenue estimates that are going forward. And we also have a responsibility to the program because if it fails, it failed, the vote failed first time after the third extraordinary. If it fails, then we can continue moving forward, which is a positive for the institutions in the state.
And so there's 300, so I'm assuming that the math of the prior commitments, existing obligations for 26-27 is just the 375 and the 900 of new money together.
The 900.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Okay.
so on the top
Right.
so that gives you the 1.275 of prior commitments, existing obligations. So there are no existing obligations that would expire after this year.
There are existing obligations that will be on the books for next year. What we have done, and that gets to the next item on the agenda. And we can move on. So,
Let's see if there are any questions on the Zoom.
okay.
Any questions? If not.
I'm all good.
Okay, great. So I guess the fourth item.
Okay, so when you look at the fiscal year 25-26 budget, the blue columns on the right, what you see is prior commitments of 5.679, 5.680. What those represent are just the prior commitments in that fiscal year. So when we, for example, we award a 3-year grant. That 3-year grant is not all obligated out of a single year. It's obligated out of the next 3 fiscal years. So it might be that we have 2-year awards, the 3-year awards with the second year in fiscal year 26, that will have a 3rd year in fiscal year 27. And we have made all of the institutions aware that the way that the constitutional amendment is written, all unobligated funds in the accounts will be swept as of ratification by the voters. It will be immediate. So we have notified institutions that with that language, there is no opportunity for us to continue funding in future fiscal years. However, we've had a lot of internal discussions because it will abruptly halt a lot of research activities and educational activities that are ongoing if these funds are swept and not provided for the full term of the awards. And the solution that we have arrived at, that we will ask the board to consider, this is not final, is the possibility that we can reallocate those funds to reserves. So we will obligate those funds out of reserves rather than waiting to obligate those funds in the next fiscal year, which will allow us to have the funds obligated before the vote takes place, and then we will spend out those obligated funds as quickly as possible. We wouldn't spend them out year over year the way we currently do. We would simply send lump sum. We would continue to do back-end program management and project management, but we would not hold the funds. So we are hoping that that will allow us to make those awardees whole. They will receive their full allocation, and it will allow us to maintain the federal matching that we have, that the Board of Regents has approved. The issue with federal matching is if we don't provide it, there's a possibility that we will lose those awards. Some of that matching is mandatory, some of it is simply pledged, but as everybody knows, if you don't meet your match obligation, there's a very real risk that the funds will be lost. So this is a benefit to the legislature, who won't then be asked on an emergency basis to pick up match that's lost. And it's a benefit to our institutions. We'll be able to maintain multi-year funding.
And you said immediately swept, but do you actually mean that, or you mean as of June 30th?
No, the way that the statute is written, as soon as what they want to do is clear the unaccrued liabilities out of the retirement systems before the end of the fiscal.
Okay.
So Carrie, what's the downside? It seems like that's an excellent plan, and that will ensure that we complete the research projects out there. I don't see a downside to this. Is there one?
There's not a downside from our perspective. The only question will come that these are monies that, if we use them, will not then be swept. So a slightly lower amount of money will be swept to pay off unaccrued liability. But the amount of money in terms of the scale of what they're sweeping is minuscule, because you're talking about a sweep of $1.7 billion. And you're talking about an obligation to the regents of about 9 million.
Right. Right. This sounds like a great plan. Now, if it does get voted down, it will impact the next year's available balance, won't it? I mean, if it gets voted, it doesn't get voted this time, then we'll start the programs back up. Would this affect the amount of money we'll have for next year to restart the programs?
No, it wouldn't, because what we would do at that point is revert to fiscal year obligation. And so those obligations would just be prior commitments in fiscal year 27.
Okay.
So we wouldn't expend out of reserves. We would move it so that we can expend out of dollars on hand. We would move it back if the vote doesn't pass, because then we will have the opportunity to go ahead and expend without amending all the contracts and paying out the money up front.
Are you looking for a motion to approve this plan from this committee?
No, we're just informing you of it. These are
Okay.
discussions we're having internally, but I want to make sure that you can start spreading the word among your institutions that there are wheels in motion. We will likely bring this to the board in December, along with the plan and budget, so we can notify as early as possible, definitively notify the institutions that we have a plan, the board has approved, and we'll be moving forward.
Great. Well, I applaud your efforts and thank your efforts for keeping our poor researchers and other programs whole. So thank you so much. Great idea.
So I have a question about the administrative staff with this immediate repeal, if it happens in April. if we use the reserves to address that future commitments, what happens in terms of administration of those funds for the
The
outgoing?
board is looking at, that nothing, what happens in terms of the administrative staff, the board is considering we can't use any of those funds to cover the administrative staff. They have to be used. We could really only justify using them for program because there's statute on the books that determines the calculation that we can use for admin. So we can't do anything about that, but there are discussions happening internally because we'll need to maintain, even with the full suite, we would need to maintain the staff to close out the awards that are ongoing.
Yes.
And until we until we figure out how to deal with, we currently have almost 4,000 endowments. And we do annual reporting on those endowments and day-to-day management. That's Chris Medier's job. We will have to make determinations about how those will be managed in perpetuity because it's 4,000 endowments and almost as much as the trust fund in market value. We have about 1.2 billion in market value in the endowment funds. So there will be a lot of work on the back end to wind this down, but we'll have to figure out how to do that because the funds are not winding down or stopping.
And could I ask that if and when, I assume that the Board of Regents makes a decision on what this looks like, if they took that proposal of how to do that, for that $9 million, could you share that back out with us and the breakdown of showing how that's fulfilled?
Yeah.
So that we could have that in hand
Absolutely. Happy to.
for conversation.
Yep.
So do we have like a summary document or a slide deck that we could use to help educate our colleagues, our legislative staff?
We have general information about the support
Yeah.
fund. We can provide this slide deck, and the front half of this slide deck is pretty effective. We can also provide, we have more general information on where the money's gone.
Yes.
No, the 43 campuses that are eligible for this funding, we've provided money to 42. And the only reason we haven't provided money to 43 is they became eligible only a few years ago and just haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, we can absolutely provide it.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Yeah, we'll send that out.
Important to
To
remember the return on investment,
Yes.
10 to 1, so it's $10 billion
Yeah.
pumped into our certain infrastructure. I tell faculty members that a lot of the things they see, a lot of the instruments they're using, a lot of infrastructure is because of this program.
We need to be able to tell that story.
And a number of major initiatives from NSF, such as centers, they require a match.
Right.
That has always been made available through this program.
Yeah, I don't think our legislature has a good understanding of this, the value of this structure in providing match because it's steady, it's year over year, and you don't have, first, institutions don't have to go to the legislature to ask the legislature to allocate match. It simply happens on the back end. And it returns very, very well. It returns better than almost any investment you can make. And it has allowed Louisiana, in part, to be one of the elite EPSCoR states. We have been an EPSCoR state since 1987. We know that nobody's really graduated out of EPSCoR. If they graduated, they'd come right back in. But we are among the top producing and top earning, if you will, of the EPSCoR states, which encompasses more than half the country at this point.
Yeah, we do spreadsheets tracking it, it's almost about 100 million from NSF,
Close to 6.
almost 600 million that we've gotten in NSF money over,
Yeah, so,
since 1987.
so were it not for support fund, we might have been able to bring in $600 million federal agencies.
And that doesn't include the Louisiana Biomedical Research Network,
Right,
which is also support fund match, but that's all for first-timers.
Correct, we have some, new graphics that we've made on that, so I feel like we know that as well.
Yeah, we can send those graphics out as well.
And, I obviously have not read the Act 222, but I assume the constitutional ballot language is not laid out in the act.
It is.
It is, the
Yes.
actual language they would use for that,
Yes.
so they would have to make any legislative changes in a special session or quickly if they want to change the actual constitutional amendment the way it is worded.
Right, and the way that it's worded, if you remember the
These are the detailed questions I'd like to know about.
Yeah, if you look at the 2024 third extraordinary, the way that ballot language read, it was very, very general, which posed issues with the passage. And so what they did was they broke apart that big bill into smaller bills, more targeted bills. And so now Act 222, which specifically deals with the fund sweeps, those 4 trust funds that will be swept for UAL, that ballot language lines out those funds. In the previous ballot language, they weren't even named. It was just, some activities related to funds. Now it says, we will repeal the Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund. They're all 4 education funds. So that ballot language is absolutely in Act 222.
Just curious, the value of those 4 funds altogether?
The total amount that they expect to generate from the 4 funds together is $2 billion.
1.7 is from,
Yeah, so they're small, they're much smaller. And in terms of,
It's out of our control pretty much unless a special session goes in before the vote. Is that correct?
oh, absolutely. And even with a special, I don't
Probably.
think anything's gonna change in terms of the statute they already passed.
No, they won't take it up, but if it gets voted down this time, most likely it won't come up again. Don't you think after 2 runs they're going to give up on it?
Never say never, Mark.
Okay.
I was optimist.
But that would be an opportunity at that point to start reaching out and showing the value of this support fund to workforce, economic development, as well as the research capacity of the state. So I think if we survive, we ought to agree on a campaign to get out there and start talking to the legislators, and maybe y'all can supply talking points.
Yeah, I agree. And I will just remind, I think everybody's probably already aware, but the other thing that happened around all of the constitutional amendment discussion in the regular session was exactly what had happened in the special, which is that it is anticipated that once the UAL is paid off, which is the advantage of paying off the UAL, that will free up dollars. Those dollars were dedicated on the K-12 side, so that will go to teacher pay raises, and they protected the funding that will be lost for early childhood and things like that from the trust funds. That's all been built back in. The higher education funds, they're silent. It goes back into state general, the allocation of the legislature. It's not a dedication to higher ed.
Are there any other questions, comments from anyone? If not, we'll to adjourn.
But thanks, everybody. Very much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Terry. Christian.
Well, there's Severn.
Thanks, Janine.
I was actually going to do it.
I didn't do it.
My mom was